Hi, hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to Acting from All Angles. Today we are going to be talking about crying on cue. Crying on cue. It's so scary. Can I do it? For some of you it may be really easy. I get information, I get questions about this, so we're going to talk about it. But first, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Julianne Lichty Stratton, and I am the creator of Actors in Action Conservatory of Film and Theater, where we empower the passionate actor with the craft and skill to have a serious acting career. I'm really excited to be here today. Um, Sometimes if you're an actor and you tell people you're an actor, do you ever get like, oh, hey, can you cry on cue? Let me see, right? So a lot of people think that crying on cue is, I don't know, this mystical, magical thing. Um, it's almost like memorization. You get, how do you memorize all those lines, right? So I even hate to use the term crying on cue ugh, because that really does put pressure on the actor. It's like on this line it says she weeps or he starts to sob or whatever. And so the actor gets under so much pressure that boom, they have to do it right on that line. They have to do it right there. And that can really shut you down and that can be scary. But I'm going to just talk about a couple of practical things you can do to help yourself um, be able to bring yourself there emotionally. But first, I'm going to get more into the layers of acting. Okay, so crying on cue may seem like something that, okay, let's sign up for crying on cue class, and it doesn't really work that way. So if you are acting, if you have a strong nice process, and you're also emotionally free, those are going to really help with your crying on cue. All right, or being able, let's say more, being able to bring those emotions to the scene, because really, really what the director, the writer, the producers, what they're looking for is an actor who can be real in the moment and give them whatever nuances that come out. And that may mean you start crying before that line a little bit, or after that line, or a little bit like you're more full emotionally throughout the scene. It doesn't mean that, you're doing your lines, la, 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 and now a tear is going to spring from my eye exactly on this particular line. And why is it not that way? That is because in life, as human beings, we're not just talking and all of a sudden a tear comes, right? Whenever you cry, think about it. Isn't there sort of like a buildup? You're like, I feel it hit in my stomach. I start to feel a little weak. I can feel my eyes water, right? My throat maybe gets tight, or I feel some sadness in my chest. It starts to like work out of you. It starts to work out of you. And that's really what we want to allow to happen in our scene work when we have to do anything, be connected on any kind of emotional level, but when we cry too. So, what I really recommend is that you find a good process for your acting, something that can connect you to you and connect you to your partner. Not that you're playing a character. You want to always start with yourself. Meryl Streep says that she always plays herself. And you're like, what are you talking about? She's so versatile. She always finds an aspect in herself that is relatable to the character and taps into that. Because if you're going to play a character, if you're going to try to be that person, if you're going to do that, you're never going to actually have access to your full emotions. You're not going to be a full human being, which is what acting is about. And people are not going to want to watch you because they'll be like, I don't really feel like that rings true, and they'll get bored. So, what you want to do is you actually want to start with a process, layering things out, okay? So that can be, you can play verbs, you can pick what you want, you can, what do I want in this scene? I want them to listen to me. And when they're not listening to me, that could evoke tears. Instead of like, I've got to do the scene and I've got to cry on this line. That doesn't work. That's not how it works. So having that craft, having that process is the first huge thing to do. And then crying on cue won't even be a worry. You won't even think of it that way. Okay? So that's one thing. Having a nice deep process that you can work on daily. Actors are like pianists. It's like, uh, you know, do you think you could learn to play the piano in 6 weeks? Like really well, be a virtuoso? No, right? I mean, I know Ryan Gosling did in about 6 months, but he worked night and day on it and he got really good. But it takes a time to have a process, to have a technique, to have skill. Same thing with acting. I think that people think acting looks so simple. They're like, oh, I can do that. That's not a big deal. I don't need to train. I don't need to have a skill or a technique. But would you sit down and try to play Beethoven's sonata right now? Oh, I'll take a couple lessons. Of course not. Okay. So get that process. Train with good teachers. Train with people that you love their acting. That's what I recommend like people, for me, if I ever train with somebody, I want to see them act first. If they can't act, I don't want to train with them because how can they teach me anything? So the next thing you want to do is the emotional freedom. You want to be open, you want to be free, you want to be able to access your feelings. All right. Now that can be outside of the scope of acting class or working on your acting. That could need some professional therapy help. No shame in that. As actors, we deal with our emotions. Our emotions are our commodity, part of it, right? We have to be unblocked. We have to be able to really feel what we're feeling and allow those to surface. And our technique's going to help that. But if we're blocked emotionally, it's not going to work. So we got to work on that. If you get anxiety when you feel things, go get some therapy, go work on some exposures. Exposure therapy is a great way. EMDR is a great way. There's a ton of stuff you can do to work on emotional freedom. There's something right now, Joe Kelly does this resetting thing, which I recommend. It's lovely. I actually did it myself. It helps you just free up your emotions and get in touch with yourself. I still think you need some technique with it, but that really helps you open up. So there's a lot of stuff you can do. So you've got that, okay? So then like if I was doing a scene where I had to cry, I did do a scene, there's a scene on my reel where my daughter's been kidnapped and I fall apart. I fall apart in it. And how did I do that? How did I do that? Well, I had it structured out. I knew what I wanted. I had it personalized to myself. And I was like, okay, I want this thing. And if it doesn't happen, how does it make me feel? And it made me feel very upset. So when I did the scene, I was connecting to the people around me, but I had this thing inside of me, this little time bomb that was ready to go off when all of a sudden, boom, I had to cry. All right, so I did that. So you want to structure something. Okay, so that's like the deeper stuff. Let's look at some practical stuff. All right, just getting yourself geared up. So practical stuff, one thing you can really do is you can do sighing. Ha, release your voice like that. Ha, that's going to bring tears. Right now I can feel some tears coming to my eyes. Ha, okay? So if you're going to do that, you can't maybe do that right in the scene, but you do it before, it's going to prime that pump. Prime that pump, and then you also are connected to your emotion, your personalization and what you want. And so do that a couple of times before you go to the scene, and then you're doing the scene. Think about what you want, think about what's there, and then just allow it. Allow it to happen. It's going to be in your voice, it's going to be in your eyes, it's going to come out, and pretty soon, you're going to have tears coming down your face. Because you're feeling it, and it will be there, and you'll be connected, and it will be real. It's not fake. So keep breathing, keep allowing that. Keep letting yourself feel those feelings. Open your throat. We talked about last week, open your throat. Stay with it. Say your lines, but be connected. Be connected to the people around you. All right? The appropriate tears will come. If it's a sobbing scene, then you can work on that. So that's one way. Another thing you can do is you can rehearse it. You can rehearse it with these big ha's, right? You can rehearse it so that you open up the channels of your emotions. Open up those channels so the next time you do this scene, it's going to just be there, okay? The hugest thing is, though, is you don't want, of course, when you're doing this, you don't want to push anything. You don't want to push anything. You don't want it to be like, oh, now I'm gonna cry. That's fake. That's not real. You want it to spontaneously come up, and you can do this prep work stuff beforehand. So another thing you can do is you're doing that. Another thing you can do is you can try to master your tears. So in real life, most of us have a hard time crying, or we don't want to cry in public. We don't want to cry around people, right? So if you have a scene like that where you're trying to hold it together, but it requires you to cry, try to sort of suppress those feelings, suppress the crying, keep it inside, but try to like master that. Master those tears, hold them, but still let it churn inside of you. And sometimes that is more emotionally full than like really pushing the tears and letting the tears out. So the ha thing, mastering the tears, practicing, rehearse this. There's also thinking about things that are sad. Before I had a really strong process, I would think about sad things that happened to me, or pets dying, stuff like that. You can do that. That's a nice little trick to do if you really need to cry and you can't get it. You can think about something. It's good to have that prepared beforehand. And that's another thing. You can journal about this. Journal. What makes you sad? What makes you cry? We do emotion trees, so we'll do an emotional muscle development on an emotion. Like if you did sadness, and then you let yourself just your mind wander with this. And what makes you sad? Where do you feel it in your body? And you jot that down on this tree, and then you go back and revisit it later. Where does it make you sad? That's another great thing I just said. Feeling it in your body. When you have to do a scene and you're sad and you've got to cry, notice when you do cry, where do you feel it in your body? Me, I start to feel it right here in my chest. And like I said, my throat starts to close and I feel tingly and my tummy starts to sort of churn. So that's another way you can, like, if you need to cry, you just remember how it feels physically to cry. What happens to your voice? What happens to your chest? What happens to your breath? Where does it go? How do you feel physically, kinesthetically? You have a hard time looking people in the eyes when you cry. You have to look down. What do you do? So that's another great way. Is get in touch with physically how you feel when you cry. Okay? Another thing is you probably want to drink some water. Very practical. Drink some water, be hydrated. Be hydrated so that you can feel and you can get those feelings out. Make sure that you're hydrated. So those are some basic ways that you can work on this, okay? You know, for some movies, they'll put like teardrops in your eyes, and that's okay too. If you need to do that, that's fine. And the director may want, I want a specific shot where I have one little tear coming out of your eye. And that may be technically too difficult to do, and for you or for the actor or for whatever. So they'll put a little teardrop and they'll have you do that.